LadyLucidity ASMR. Hello there, my lovelies, and welcome to another craft video. Today I am going to be making a mimic. Now, if you don't know what a mimic is, then the easiest way to describe it is a creature that appears to be a chest or a box of some description, but is actually a monster. So for this I'm going to be using a wooden box, some polymer clay, some regular air dry clay, acrylic paints, and a lot of gloss Mod Podge. So, although this isn't strictly a tutorial, if you'd like to create your own at home, you can just follow along. So, to start, we're going to use the air dry clay. So I'm going to just get this out of its packet, just like this. You'll notice my one is a terracotta colour. If you've not used air dry clay before, it can come in different colours, and it doesn't matter which colour you use because we are going to be painting over it anyway, so not too big of a deal. First I'm going to work on the outside detailing of the box and try to age it up a little bit. I want it to look like a loot chest of some sort, so I'm going to start with the straps on the outside. So let's just warm this clay up. Now normally I would have a bowl of water beside me if I'm using air clay, but that can get messy rather quickly, and I'm not using it strictly to sculpt anything too elaborate. If I was, say, making a dragon out of it, I definitely would have some with me, but we're going to keep it nice and simple today. So I'm just rolling out this really long piece here, and then I'm going to split it into two and measure my box. Always make sure you have your box handy for measuring. Always use it as your reference point to go back to. So just cut it in half. Okay, and I'm going to have two straps just at the front here, and I want them to overlap very slightly, and I want to make sure they don't cover the crease at the back. So let's take those pieces out. otherwise we won't be able to open and close our lid fully. So I want it to be at least semi-functional. Okay, so that's perfect. Okay, I think these are in a good position. I'm just going to lightly flatten them out with my fingers. Make it more sort of like an actual strap rather than just a lump of clay. And I'm going to trim the front up here. So this one needs to be a tad bit shorter. Okay, perfect. And then I'm going to dab a bit of water underneath to help it adhere to the wood. Okay, and a little bit on top so I can smooth it out easier. It just glides, just like that. And I will be covering it in glue as well to seal it in, so I don't have to worry too much at this stage. So this is one of my many tubs of Mod Podge. You guys know I adore this stuff. And for anyone new who's watching, yes, I do use a lot of this in my videos. It's just a really great glue, sealer and varnish all in one. Just amazing. So because it dries clear, I don't have to worry about putting too much on. Just be really thorough and really push that glue in. Okay, so I'm going to do the other side. So again, get some water. Just lift that up slightly, there we go. Reposition, smooth it out. Make sure it's really pressed on good. And then add some more. So in total this piece took around 4 days to make, just because of all the in-between waiting for bits to dry. So you do need a little bit of patience with this make. Okay, just make sure I put some underneath as well. Want it nice and secured. There we go. Okay. So that's our strap on the front. I will add another one across the back as well. So this will take at least an hour to dry and we can start to work on the other details. So this is afternoon on day 1. And I've just painted the top and I've applied a really good layer of Mod Podge in the base, and this is where the insides of our monster's mouth is going to be. So from here on out, if you are squeamish and don't like gooey things, then you might want to check out a different video. We are effectively making an inside of a monster's mouth, so it's going to get a little bit gross from here. I apologise. So I've just wet my clay slightly, make it more malleable, easier to mould with, and this is where you get to really have some fun because it doesn't have to be neat. You are literally creating like grooves and just pits. Make it look as creepy as possible. Also, a little disclaimer for anyone who has tryptophobia, which I myself do have. I will be poking holes, as you can see in here, and such, in case anyone is uneasy with those kinds of things. Just a little warning. But it should be pretty quick. So you just want to make sure you're adding as much texture as possible. Okay, and again, it doesn't matter how much Mod Podge you have on your clay, because it will dry clear, and we are going to add at least 2 layers of acrylic to it. So you just want to keep going all the way around, and I'm also making sure I push the clay up into the sides. So you can see here the base layer is done and just needs to dry. And now I'm going to be working on the lid. So for the lid, again, we're just going to put a really thin layer of Mod Podge in. For the lid of the chest, we're going to be using a thinner amount of clay, just so it's not too over heavy. Okay. To get that nice and glued. Okay, I'm going to start small, make sure it's nice and thin, and just press it in. Really stretch that around those corners and up the side. Okay. Trying to make it as thin as possible without it showing through the bottom too much or breaking. Okay. This is why I'm using smaller pieces for this part. Okay, just push up into the corners. Okay, so just pressing up into the sides like that. And I just use the end of a paintbrush to create those little holes, and just push my fingertips in there like that. Just give it some definition. Okay, so that's both inside pieces done. It's still a little bit wet, so I'm going to leave that to dry for another hour at least. We have our paints ready for when it is dry, and we can pop our red and our pinks inside. But for now, while it's drying, we can move on to making the teeth. So for this, I'm using an oven bake clay, so like Sculpey, all the Primo stuff. You can get this from Amazon and other craft shops. So the reason I'm using oven clay for the teeth is they tend to be stronger if they're made out of the oven clay. Air dry clay tends to become very brittle and breaks easy, and you need a little bit of strength in these. So once they're baked, they are pretty much rock solid and really easy to work with. So as an example, I'm just going to put this one here so you guys could see what it would look like. Okay, so the positioning of your teeth in the box is very important. If you want your box to close fully, you'll need to make sure to put them in a few millimeters from the edge. But if, like me, you're wanting it to look more dramatic and not necessarily fully closing, then I would stick to the edge of the box. But you'll see as we progress how that turns out. So this was actually the most tedious part of the make, just making tons upon tons of fake teeth. So my little boy must have thought I'd gone quite mad, just putting loads of white fangs into the oven to cook. I think in total I made around 25 teeth in the end, something like that. And you don't want all of your teeth to be the same. You want them to have a different shape, different size, slight bends. Just make it more interesting. I think it actually looks creepier that way than if they were all just straight white. If you want it to be extra gruesome, you could always paint your teeth as well with something on the end of them. Maybe it had a fresh kill or something, I don't know. But today I'm just going to stick with white. So once all of my teeth are moulded, I simply put them on a baking sheet on my tray in the oven for about 10 minutes. They're very small, so they bake a lot quicker. Okay, so while my teeth are out of the oven and cooling down, it's now time to paint. So I've got a mixture here of bright red for the inside, and then a mixture of pink and a pearl white around the edges. So I wanted to create some real depth. So I wanted to try and make it dark around the outside, fading into a lighter colour in the middle. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but that was the idea. Okay, so I'm just making sure I'm pressing into all those little nooks we made earlier. Just darkening up that edge colour. Okay, so you can see after I've filled in the middle bits, I then start to work on the browns for our chest. I wanted this old antique wood colour, so decided to use a mixture of burnt sienna and a little bit of gold and this really nice mustard colour as well. But it's completely up to you. You could paint your chest rainbow, any colour you like. Make it as fantastical as you like. Okay. And at this stage I'm just being very rough with the first coat, putting some streaks in, adding texture, as I'm going to put a second coat on later as well. And I'm going to use my really dark brown here just for the front, and then I'm going to paint my gold onto the little rivets at the front that I've created. Just move the lock out the way. Just go around there, being very careful. Light brown, just there we go. Work around there, add some texture, make it look a bit worn, a bit battered. something you might find on a dungeon crawl. Okay, so our mimic is really coming together now. He's starting to take shape. So my teeth are nice and cooled down and ready to glue in. Now the paint might look a little wet on the box, but that's just the gloss Mod Podge doing its work, looking all shiny. So I'm going to start with the lid, and again I'm going to use a lot of glue for this. Okay, so I want to get it in the right position to put the teeth in, and I'm going to try and stick with doing 2 large fangs either side, and then mix and match the shapes in the middle. So you'll see as I build it up. And it's really up to you. Maybe your creature just has 2 fangs and that's it. Maybe they have 4 rows of teeth. It's completely up to you. And this is why I love the world of fantasy, because it is just that. You can create pretty much anything you like. Just get the 2 biggest ones, pop those in either side, just give them a really good press, try and get them to stand up. This was the most difficult part. I did obviously try to make sure they had flat bottoms to make it easier, and this part will take some patience and a bit of practice, but the result is amazing. So just give yourself a little trust and you'll do absolutely fine making this. Okay, so put this big fella in here like that, and my best advice is once they're all glued in, just leave it be. If you start to move them or mess with it while it's drying, everything could fall down and it would just be a gluey mess. So trust the process. I left mine on a windowsill with the window open, and it still took around 3 hours to dry fully, so it will take some time. Just making sure that I'm changing it up a little. Lots and lots of extra glue, and then I am going to be putting the smaller teeth in between the gaps from the larger ones. So this part wasn't particularly time consuming, just incredibly fiddly, so if you don't trust yourself with your hands, maybe get some tweezers, something like that, to try and push them into position. Another tip to make it easy on you guys is, if you are using Mod Podge, I would put a layer in your box, wait for 5 minutes until it goes tacky, and then that is actually the best time to stick things so that this doesn't happen. They're more likely to stand up instantly rather than keep falling over. Little fella here, and you just keep layering them up like a jigsaw puzzle. filling in the gaps where you can. More glue. And just wiggle some more in the gaps there. Oh, we had an escapee. Okay, so I'm going to move around now and do the inside here, just to get a better angle. See which corner pieces I missed. So right in here. Can't forget the corners. There we go. Okay, just think I might reposition that one. I think you are better there. So guys, this is the long-awaited finished product. I even added a little tongue as well, made out of polymer clay. And look how amazing this looks. And you still have enough room in here to put your trinkets and goodies. And he looks pretty scary if I do say so myself. Now obviously mine does not close. I wanted you to be able to see the teeth a little bit. So again, it's all about the positioning, so it's up to you guys. So ready to put my treasures in my fake chest and he can munch on those. Very tasty. Nom nom nom. Nom 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 nom. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always I will see you in my next one. Bye guys.